This is a layer cake, Mike, you alright? This is, taste it. Oh, it's a very nice cake too. So, this bit for me, and that bit for you, eh? Alright?
Thank you.
You alright with that?
Yeah, it's great. Even got Sonia Chin as well.
Hi guys, my name's Stephen Gillen, and after many years as a senior criminal, my run in organised crime finished in the early 90s, with me receiving 17 years as a Category A prisoner. Today we're going to take another deep dive at a very iconic film, Matthew Vaughan's Layer Cake. Let's see just how authentic these characters are.
When I was born, the world was a far simpler place. It was all just cops and robbers.
One thing I love about Layer Cake, Matthew Vaughan's first film, was it's so authentic to many of the characters in this life of the day. The guy who actually wrote the script, I remember he was in the life. So we had a real understanding about the game itself and being in the game, deep in the game. And it was a very fast moving script. Great film.
But it wasn't for me.
And it's so very true of this iconic armed robbery scene that criminality from senior criminals shifted as Class A drugs started to be the real money getter of the day.
Then came the summer of love.
The summer of love, you know, and I remember that it was the first thing. You had the puff, you had the ears, everyone was, I love you, and all that. But that soon switched, right? And then you had cocaine, you had crack. Everyone's back against the wall, started turning really violent.
12 months for smuggling 2 million quid's worth of puff. I mean, work it out, mate. We're in the wrong fucking game.
And that's what many people deduced. We're in the wrong game. Why go and do an armed robbery, take a bag for 25 grand you was insured for? In them days they was bring smatter over the pavement. Or, you know, open a van and take 100 grand, 200 grand. You could be making that a day with this game. Daniel Craig, his character's not named in this film, but he plays a very plausible role as an up-and-coming guy within the life. You know, and this was a great film for many people of the day. It certainly got him noticed as the James Bond he was to be later. You had people like Tom Hardy in there as Clarky, and it got him noticed on his fast-moving career also.
This is Clarky. Double first at Cambridge in industrial chemistry. Well, he's got to pay off his student loan somehow.
You know, and they set it up beautifully as well, because I certainly knew some of the guys back in the day, and it was that grey like stucco kind of buildings like the King's Road, Chelsea. These was a lot of the guys. There was a immense amount of money in this in cocaine in the day, and it was flying, you know. Boxes of this gear, as it was called in them days, was going for an absolute fortune.
Always work in a small team. Keep a very low profile. Only deal with people who come recommended.
I knew many people back in the day in the life who was really involved in this, very, very high-end. Many stories. One I can remember, what he says here, it was very important to be around a certain clique. And I can remember there was just one story I'd give about someone very, very close to me who went on a meeting, I think it was getting 5 or 10 keys or whatever, and checked the gear and everything. It was pure, it was proper. You know, they'd done the testing and all that, paid the money. But before they went, the other firm swapped a couple of kilos for the same size for cheese. So it was cheese, and they didn't know until they went out. They lost a lot of money that day.
I mean, that's not to say that we don't weave that special kind of magic that makes 2 kilos into 3, but never be too greedy.
People would use the magic. There was this thing used to be called magic, and it was magic because it'd make 1 kilo of pure into 5 kilo of press or whatever.
They've got to find these people. It's hard work.
Oh, you give a fucking aspirin an headache, pal.
I love this scene as well with the Duke, Jamie Foreman. Of course, Jamie Foreman is the son of Freddie Foreman, associated with the craze, big old school name. He knew the life. He plays this beautifully, especially as that South London element, very boisterous, very ostentatious and all that. No patience. I think it's a very authentic scene. Very well done.
That parcel of pills has got to be worth 5 million easy.
£5 each, yeah?
You are fucking joking. It doesn't work like that.
Don't keep fucking saying that to me.
And at the end of the day, he's right. It doesn't necessarily work like that. You think you got an absolute fortune, but when you've got bulk, the money goes down because it's still a lot of money, but the money goes down, the price goes down because of the volume and the handling and getting rid of something like that. It starts to go, only key people who can really handle that volume and are set up to handle that volume and wash the money. This scene is great as well because you always get guys like this. He's in there, he's on the gear, he's on the trumpet or whatever, and he's plenty of banning, as they would say, it's going on and on. You're like, you got to be polite, you got to be proper, but I've got to get away from this guy, It keeps going on and on. And this one is after the bird, right? And they got a thing going on here.
Good hell. What's going down this neck of the woods for, eh? Hello, Freddie.
I love this scene too. It's a very authentic scene. I'm sure, like for me personally, I've been in situations like this. We've got a guy, he thinks he's part of you. You may have some mystery that goes back, but he's not the real thing. He's not proper, and he certainly hasn't become what he needs to be. There's a big divide here, but he hasn't got the experience, the etiquette, the character. So this shows, and it turns bad. And it could very easily go like this. It's very offensive. Some history between these guys, and he's taking the right piss. So he's tried his best to keep it cool. Of course, the anger's got the better of him. It's mostly about respect in many ways, or not keeping to the etiquette of the life and how things are done and how you're meant to conduct yourself.
You've lost me now.
Yeah, well, if you have us over, I swear by fucking almighty God, I'll call the fucking law.
This is another typical example of these guys in this meet like this. As soon as you hear that, this is how people could be, they'll wind up dead very easily, just like in this.
Sitting in your bonded warehouse with the ex-professional soldiers doing the dirty work, while you deliver the highly suspect educational lecture to baffle your opponents and cover your tracks.
What I love about this film as well is it shows the dynamics between all the characters. It shows the treachery, especially as it goes up in the layer cake. When you're on the bottom, you've got no chance, right? But as it goes up, everyone's on the robbery game, everyone's on the treachery game, and everyone is positioning everyone and tucking them up. This is the drugs game, especially at this level, all over.
It's all about honor and respect.
This is the end, Mr. Duke.
There's a very good way they portrayed the element of the Serbians. There was a nasty war going on there. These guys was very war hardened then, and they had some serious killers then. So if you was a mess about with them, this is very authentic. Life was cheap to these guys. Even with this, reminds me of the Essex boys, who I knew. Right, some of them guys around that time there, especially Pat Tate. And everyone's looking to rob everyone in this game.
And again, look, I am sorry about Lucky.
Don't worry about it, kidder. Mum was a prick anyway.
This character here is most certainly modelled on Curtis Warren, who's a major importer of the day from Liverpool.
But suddenly, there was a void where once there was Jimmy Price.
Even with the treachery between these guys, you see, and there's always the police informant in it too. As everyone moves up and everyone is sacrificing everyone, and everyone is looking to get to move up and be the boss. which is one of the worst things you can be. Be number 3. So when it goes wrong, they're going to come for number 1 and number 2. Be number 3.
King is dead.
This is a great iconic scene as well, because you can see the migration of this gang and what happens to them in the life as other people get moved out of the way, other people get murdered, other people go to prison, other people are positioned, there's a lot of treachery, and then the next boss and the next lot of people move up. But they're a big target, as you see here.
What was true then is true now.
There were some really fine actors of the day here. You got Tom Hardy, you got Jeannie there, who was late to be the boss in Gangs in London, something really great coming on that soon. And Daniel Craig, of course, was to go on to James Bond fame.
So I'm sure you gentlemen must have lots to discuss, but I have no business being here.
What I love probably most about this scene is Daniel Craig's character was a really clever one. He was the really intelligent one, because he knew that the only ones that really prosper in that game are the ones who make some money but know when to get out before the game gets them. But you know, as you see, the history comes with you, you know, and you can't really get away with that. And that can translate in many ways, as it does for Daniel Craig's character here in The Layer Cake.
If you knew that, you'd be as clever as
Fate
me.
doesn't treat him kindly here. And it wasn't even the sensible one that kills him in the end. It's the idiot, really. It goes to show you. But it's the same result. And that's what happens in this life. There are usually only 3 ways out of it: prison, insanity, or death.
How much of an impact did drugs have on the criminal world that you were a part of?
It was massive. Like I say, it was all about the heavy criminals. You know, it was the organised crime, a lot of the heavy stuff, armed robbery. And then it changed, because there was a lot of money in drugs. And certainly in the 80s, this was the change of it. It really exploded.
Daniel Craig's character gives the advice of always working in a small team. Is this true?
You need to really work close-knit with the people that you know. Is when you start, by the very nature, though, of drugs, you need to work with other people, right, to sell it, you know, and so forth. And this opens the door to a lot of vulnerability for people to be arrested.
How often would there be attacks or even assassinations performed in public open spaces such as cafes?
It depends, not usually, but you know, it depends where you are in the scheme of things, and it just depends who it is, and these things can happen. Usually it's to send a message really, really clearly to other people.
Have you ever seen it happen?
I've seen things similar happen.
Were you ever involved in deals or meetings that ended in double crossings?
Well, there was one story, you know, and this was about a big consignment of drugs. Wasn't even my money, wasn't even my drugs. I gave an introduction to another firm who was looking for something. They ended up, it went really wrong for them. And of course they come for me, you know, there was a lot of violence. They was going to shoot me over this, right, you know, but I did nothing wrong here. So we got the other guy who this trade had gone through, you know, and we went down to Wilson Green, I remember, and we was all sitting there. I had people around me, and that could have got very, very hairy, because we're waiting for this guy to come on the, you know, we're phoning him, waiting for him to come. I didn't think he was going to come, really, because I knew something bad had gone down. All they wanted was a body. So, of course, you know, I'll never forget it. When he come, you know, this black guy, young black guy, he turned up with a bird, a silk shirt and a bird hanging off his arm. I thought, this guy's crazy. But, you know, the other firm was there with us as well. So I thought, there's your body. You know, you go to him now, that's it, you know, I'm out of it. But the strangest thing was, when we was all sitting there, as soon as he come, there was people there sitting there reading papers. So I was good at this. So I really didn't even think was part of that mob. They got up, stood up, jumped in a car come down, they all jumped in the back of it and they went. So they had people, you know, peppered everywhere as well that day. It was quite a memorable one. What do I think of Matthew Vaughn's Layer Cake? I think it's an iconic film, one of my favourites because of the character description, very authentic. Some of the scenes, they really go into the nuances of that life and how that translates, about the treachery, about the dynamic, about the violence, about the commercial aspects and the immense amounts of money and how that drives organised crime in this film. Love the cinematography, love the scripting. I'd give this film a 9, one of my favourites. I hope you liked that one, guys. I love that film. There are many more I'm going to react to too. My name's Stephen Gillen, now reformed. I'm an executive producer, CEO of a production house. There's a lot more going on in my personal brand. If you want to know more, go below, have a look. You can click some of the links. There's a lot of free stuff in there, guys. Thanks for all your attention to the channel and all the wonderful stuff that we're making just for you. You take care now. Look after yourself and be lucky. Listen, I love this film. I'll tell you, it's got one of the most iconic lines ever. All right? It's, you're born, son, you eat shit. You go a bit higher, you eat a bit more shit. Until you come to a place where you don't even know what shit looks like. That's the layer cake, son. That's great. People have used these terror tactics of all kind of bloodthirsty stuff like that to get their enemies' attention. It's nothing that focuses the mind like a head in a basket, right? Do you know what I'm saying? Fuck.
It's my technique.
Is it, Ben? That's your technique, son.
That's how I got
How many heads you put in baskets?
That's how I got this job.
What?